would say find a niche. Find People kept telling me in the first year that riches are in the niches, and I kind of go, okay. But I think it's having a well-defined what is my base clientele? What do I want to go after, or who is my audience? And be very kind of and have a good niche, and maybe a niche that nobody else is really going after.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com. We have some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Scott Chesson. And Scott after going from high school, went into the Navy Academy, was the son of a veteran, and didn't want to go the traditional college route, was commissioned and spent 3 years on a ship as a surface, I think a surface warfare officer, and then spent 3 years after that teaching in an academy position. Decided to get out or to explore other options. Decided to be a finance guy, worked for IBM and American Airlines for a period of time, and then found that he liked having a greater impact on others, so became a cooperative CFO for a few different startups and small business over 20 years. And then right before COVID hit, decided he was going to go out on his own and start doing fractional CFO services, which is what leads to where he's at today. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Scott.
Thanks, Devin. Great to be here. I appreciate it. It's look forward to talking with you.
Absolutely excited to have you on. Looking forward to a great discussion. So I just took a much longer journey, condensed it in the 30-second version of it. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a bit? So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started coming out of high school, going into the Naval Academy.
Right. Well, very good. I was, again, son of a retired Air Force veteran, so I was considering going to the Air Force Academy or the Naval Academy. I wanted to be a military officer. And with the Naval Academy, I was able to get straight in. With Air Force, they wanted to send me to prep school in Minnesota, which didn't sound very appealing to a guy who spent most of his life living in warm weather. So then that would have been 5 years to graduate. So I concluded that the Naval Academy was a great option. So I went to the Academy. I graduated after 4 years, and as you mentioned, surface warfare officer, out on a ship out of Pearl Harbor for 3 years. It was intentional picking a ship out of Pearl Harbor, I promise you. And then 3 years teaching surface warfare officer, people that were headed out to the ship, similar to I was 3 years earlier. 3 years teaching there at Coronado, California, at the Naval Amphibious Base.
So now just rewind, just because that's a good portion of your journey that we don't want to jump over too quickly. So help us understand surface warfare officer. Sounds really cool. So I have no idea what it is, but it sounds really cool. So walk us through a little bit of before you got into the academic side and did some of the teaching aspect. What did you do within the Navy?
So yeah, a surface warfare officer is a naval officer that's on a ship, on a traditional destroyer. I was on a frigate, battleship, whatever it is, and you're on there, and you're kind of basically apprenticing or learning your way how to be, all the way up to being a captain of a ship. So that's kind of your first part of the journey, is being a surface warfare. So you're trained in all aspects of being a naval officer on a ship. So in my case, I was an engineer, basically kind of the assistant engineer. I was called the main propulsion assistant, and I was in charge of the engineers that ran the fire room and the boiler room and the engine room, machinist mates. So I did that for about a year. You had to qualify down in engineering. The engineering officer will watch, so I qualified there, and then I went up and I was in charge of First Division, which is a very nautical division of some very down-to-earth fellows called bosun mates, and they handle the lines, they do all the kind of nautical work on the exterior of the ship, including standing watch, helmsman, lookouts, all those kind of things. So that was kind of my 3-year career. But that's in the Navy. Either you're a surface warfare officer, if you're a pilot, you're aviation. Maybe you're flying off carriers, or you may not be flying off carriers, and or you can be a submariner. You can go into intel, like cryptology, kind of breaking code, and then some people went into the Marine Corps as well. So I mean, there are more options than that, but those are the basic options that you come across when you graduate from the academy.
All right, no, makes good sense. So now you do that for a period of time, and then you transitioned over, shifted over to doing more academic or kind of the teaching position. So what motivated or caused that shift?
Well, it usually, again, back then, and this is a while back in the 80s, you usually do a tour on a ship for about 3 years, and then a lot of times you're doing shore duties. You're alternating sea and shore. It depends on the situation, but that's kind of how we did it. So when I was going to shore duty after my tour on the ship, I was looking at teaching. What do I want to do? And I said, I kind of like teaching. I was either maybe going to go and be an ROTC instructor at the University of Arizona or something like that, or I could go back to SWAS, or Surface Warfare Officer School in Coronado, which is obviously a fantastic place to be as well. And teach. And I taught engineering and naval, navigation, ship handling, and we actually did some leadership training there as well for people that were getting ready, like I was several years earlier, to go out to a ship to kind of prepare them. So I enjoyed doing that. I really enjoyed doing it. I learned a lot. You learn a lot about. You must master a subject quite in depth in order to teach it, because you're going to get asked a lot of questions, and questions are sometimes not what you expect. So it makes you be, very diligently prepared. It's a good way to approach a job in life, is to, I need to be very prepared. A teacher makes you do that for sure. Teaching does.
Nope.
Yes.
Makes sense, and sounds like it was gotta have an opportunity to influence a lot of others, and also or garner a lot of skills that paid off later on in the career. So now you did academic teaching position for about, I think you said about 3 years, and then afterwards you decided to go more into private industry and switch over to doing finance. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I had concluded that, I enjoyed my time in the military, but and once you go to a service academy, you're generally committed to 5 years of active duty. And if you're a pilot, it's after you get your wings, so it may be 7 years. So anyway, I had spent 6 years on active duty and concluded that I wanted to try something else. So I kind of retrained myself as a finance person, went straight into graduate school. I've always been very, very good with numbers, and very, have an affinity for them. So it made a lot of sense to do that for me. And the other thing, and let's also be clear, after wearing a uniform for 10 years between the academy and, I didn't completely know what I was doing. I think that happens to a lot of veterans. You get out and you don't exactly always have a very well laid plan. And I certainly did not, except I think I like numbers. Let's go in this direction. So I went to graduate school, finished, and I got hired by IBM. There was about 23 of us with master's degrees and prior work experience. They hired a bunch of semi-grizzled veterans to come in. And, it was a huge company. It was 380,000 employees. So it was a behemoth of a business. It was before it turned into more of a services company. It was really still a mainframe driven business way back then. So I went to work at this plant, if you can believe that, manufacturing plant in San Jose, California. It made storage devices for mainframes. So went to there and got, the good thing about working for a large business like that is you get a lot of training, you get a lot of good experience. And every 6 or 9 months, they say, hey, do you want to go do this? And I'd say, yeah, I'm going to move around and learn as much as I can and soak it up. So that's kind of got me to IBM. And I leapt off from there after a couple of years and went to work for American Airlines, which only had 100,000 employees, so it was a small company in a way. But so learn the airline industry and how difficult it is to really be successful financially in running that business. There's obviously it's very capital intensive airplanes. There's a lot of maintenance, a lot of spare parts, but it was, again, I did same thing. I did several jobs and I kept thinking there's something missing here. And really I wanted to go. Ultimately, I felt like when I was on a ship, I had 40 people reporting to me the whole time. And I needed to get back to more, where I could have a bigger impact and leadership. So I jumped off and became a controller after American Airlines, and I had about 18 to 20 people reporting to me when I made that move. But it was intentional. You got to work for a smaller business and have a greater impact.
Gotcha. No, makes perfect sense. So now, you decide, okay, you did that for a period of time. You worked for IBM. You got great experience. You worked for, American Airlines, another great company, and so you do that. Now, did you decide you wanted to go off on your own, or was it more of, hey, I'm going to try out retirement, see how it treats me, and I just hated it and I didn't want to do it anymore? Or was the intent kind of always, hey, I've done worked enough in the corporate world that I've got the experience and I want to go try something new and I want to do, or, captain my own ship, or kind of walk us through how that progression took place?
Sure. So I like to say this is my 3.0. My 1.0 was military service. My 2.0 was corporate, working in the corporate world, and 3.0 was running my own business. And so prior to running this business, I was CFO for about 21 years of 5 small to medium-sized businesses. And I've been thinking about it for the last 4 or 5 years before I made this change that, it's time to go off on my own. I kind of want to go do my own thing. Like you said, I want to be captain of my own ship, whatever you want to call it. And I kept feeling that pull. And eventually, at the beginning of 2020, I was very burned out from doing the full-time CFO gig for 21 years. And I know you spent some time on inside of a couple of big law firms, so I'm sure you can relate. I said, I need to take some, and this is pre-COVID. This is right before kind of COVID took place, but I decided it's time to go. And I finished up my last CFO gig, March 2020. But since we went home on March 11th, and and so I haven't been back in a regular office in over 3 years. But anyway, so I took a couple months off, recharged my batteries, learned to play piano a little bit, unpack some boxes, yawn, some honey-do list things in the house. And with always the intent that I'm going to start, I want to hang up my own shingle and do outsourced CFO consulting. So the fourth quarter of 2020, I started this business. And that was kind of the calculus. I really wanted to do it, but I also wanted the ability. I'm somebody who likes to learn all the time and always accomplish things. So getting the chance to work with a bunch of different businesses simultaneously really kind of keeps my engine and brain running. So I enjoy that part of it.
Now, one question, just to rewind just a little bit, which is,
sure.
So when you decided, hey, I want to go out on my own, want to do something else, captain your own ship, whatever that you want to call it, how did you figure out what that was going to be? In other words, was it just hey, I've always thought of it'd be great for businesses to have a fractional CFO, or I just want to be able to continue to use my own skill set, or kind of how did you nail down what kind of that next step would be as you stepped out on your own?
Oh, exactly. I mean, the intent was that I would do part-time consulting for businesses that really don't have a need or the finances to have a full-time CFO. So the intent was to outsource. When I started, I wasn't quite clear of the niche of what I was going to serve. But soon after I started, I kind of got the feeling, okay, I'm a veteran. I'm a son of a veteran. Actually, my mother was also a veteran and then a military spouse. She was in the Air Force in the 50s, if you can believe that. So she was kind of a pioneer back then. And so I really wanted to give back to the community. And I also feel like, and I could say that in hindsight, it's good to have a niche. So and I decided I really wanted to work with veteran-owned business and military spouse-owned business as my primary kind of category of companies to work with. But the idea was, back to the point of being an outsourced CFO, is to give those smaller businesses who don't have the need for a full-time kind of part-time business wisdom, expertise, and experience at a fraction of the cost of a full-time CFO. That's really the concept behind it. And so that was always really my intent, was to use it. I also do business valuations. I got certified to do business valuations in 2021. It was just another thing to scratch my itch of learning new things. And also I'm always interested in how business are valued. And, I had experience of helping a business exit and looked at a lot of businesses, looked at buying a lot of them as well during my time as a CFO.
No, makes sense. Sounds like it was a great niche and a great opportunity. So now, kind of to follow up, because sometimes you'll get into it and you think of doing your own business is awesome, it's great, and sometimes it is, and you enjoy it, and you wouldn't ever change it. And other times you get into it, you say, man, it's just not what I thought it would be. Or sometimes it's a lot harder, or sometimes it's a lot easier. It's just or very seldom is exactly what you expected. So as you jumped into that and got going and got into the business, how did it go? Was it a rocket ship to success? Was it bumpy, still figuring out, still evolving, or kind of how did that progress?
Oh, exactly like you said, it is not it's not a linear or a geometric progression straight up. That's not how it works. And you learn that very quickly. I think I got a client referral like right out of the gate when I opened up and did a project and did another project. And I thought that's great. But it takes a while. It takes a while to really kind of scale and build your business, get your messaging right, pick your niche, spend time in the right. And as I say in hindsight, it took 18 months of planting seeds until I felt like, okay, now I'm starting to get some tractions of being out there amongst business owners, veteran business owners, and networking, and just kind of making my pitch at a lot of different events, Zoom calls, etc., to get the name out there and then start to get some traction to go with it. So it definitely was not an ascent upward. And in a while, like, man, how long is this going to take? But everybody says 18 months. Nothing is, it's not the same for everybody, but that's kind of what I thought about 18 months into it. Okay, I've got something, I kind of got my messaging right, and my branding right. I tell my story, I've been planting my seeds. And you just never know where your business is going to come from what interaction that you have, particularly as a solopreneur, consulting, just never quite sure where your leads are going to come from. But I always say, my feeling was, I'm going to plant a lot of seeds and I'm going to be helpful to anybody that comes to me without expecting anything in return. And that's kind of my nature anyway. But I think all that helps. But it was not a rapid ascent like a rocket launch to the International Space Station or something. It was slow and methodical.
I think that's how all good businesses go, and for 99% of people, that's the course that you end up taking in some form or fashion. So now catch us up. So you started this around 2020, so you've been at it for about 3 years. Catch us up a little bit. Where are things at today? How are things going? Where are things headed?
Yeah, it's really taken off since about the fall of last year. I started adding clients, and then this year, I have probably 5 times more referrals than I had the previous 2 years combined. It's just kind of over the transom. I get a lot of referrals, and some of those are not good fits, but there's a lot more traction. I'm very busy. I hired an assistant about 2 months ago, recognizing that I need some help, and I need some good help to kind of help me with administrative, with social media, with a variety of other things. She does a great job. She's on the call too, so I'll give her a shout. Erin does a fantastic job. And that was my recognition of, as an FTE, I think at times I would try to do too much myself. And I said, I'm just not going to do that with my own business. I'm going to get help when I need it. And so now I'm very busy. I signed 2 clients this week. One to start in July, and one I signed this week, and I'm already knee deep into it. So I'm staying very busy, and I'm trying to figure out, what kind of person or position do I add to help me do the work and help me scale. That's really where I am now. So I've been very fortunate, but I'm incredibly busy right now.
Well, that's awesome. Sounds like a great place to be, and good problems to have to solve. So that's are fun to be headed in that direction. So, well, now as we've kind of caught up to the present day of the journey, and even looking a bit into where things are headed, great time to transition to the 2 questions always asked towards the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what'd you learn from it?
I think my first year, you're experimenting a little bit. What do I need to do? And you're trying things. I call it a little bit of a ready, fire, aim strategy rather than sitting still. And that's probably my nature. So I spent money on Facebook ads, and that's just a waste of time. It was silly, bad money spent. That's not even my core audience, is really on LinkedIn. My clientele that I'm going to get, business audiences on LinkedIn. That's really where I should be spending my time. However, I was somewhat talked into it. I agreed to it, and I did it for about 4 or 5 months, and I just pulled the plug. I said, this is just not a good use of funds. So it was a bad business decision, and sunk cost, money gone. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't do that. But that was, and again, I always say when you're starting, even though you have lots of finance experience like I do, business experience, you have to figure things out for yourself. You have to try some things and go, yeah, okay. And like I said, after a couple of months of that, I said, this is not my audience. I shouldn't be spending money here. So let's pull the plug.
Hmm. No, and I think, and I think that always in retrospect, always sometimes makes it, easy to say, oh, I shouldn't have spent money there and I shouldn't have gone down that path. And yet at the time you're saying, hey, what are the areas to expand, or what is popular? What are people are saying I should do? And sometimes it's a great idea and it's beneficial. And other times you're saying, man, that was just a waste of money. I'd never do that again. And either way, you got to get or have that learning experience of the areas that are your competency or where your customers are at. And sometimes you learn that just by a bit of the school of hard knocks. And so sounds like an easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from. Second,
I was just going to add on to that. I think it's okay too. It's okay. You're gonna make mistakes when you're starting up and running a business. You are, and it's okay. It's kind of, as long as you don't say, well, I'm just going to keep trying. I mean, sometimes you have to say, this didn't work. Let's try something else. Or I'm trying to do this service offering or this product offering. I tried it and it didn't work. It's okay. Let's try something else. And I think that's okay. That's part of what you should learn as you go through it, is okay. It's okay to try things and then go, oh, okay, won't do that again.
No, I think so. And I think sometimes you can do the opposite of, you're paralyzed by fear, so to speak, of, hey, I'm too worried I'm going to make a mistake, and you never try things out. And that can have just as detrimental or worse effect on the business of you're never trying new things out or never trying to expand. So it is that balance. And I think that it takes a good little while before you figure out exactly what that balance should be for your business. So second question now that I like to ask is, now if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
I would say find a niche. People kept telling me in the first year that riches are in the niches, and I kind of go, okay. But I think it's having a well-defined, what is my base clientele? What do I want to go after? Or who is my audience? And be very and have a good niche, and maybe a niche that nobody else is really going after. And so I don't encounter a lot of fractional CFOs that are focusing on veteran-owned and military spouse-owned businesses. In fact, I've encountered one. It doesn't mean they aren't out there, but I think it's a good niche that helps. I also have some general camaraderie with with the fellow veterans. There's a lot there because there's a common experience and there's a certain amount. But I think as a rule, find an audience. Don't try to be everything for everybody, but find an audience, find an industry, find a clientele that's kind of relatively specific, and figure out where they hang their hats and how to talk to them and how to communicate with them. I think that is, to me, incredibly important. I'm going to give you a twofer. I'll give you a second one too, since I'm
Absolutely.
a finance guy.
Go ahead.
And that is, you probably need 2 to 4 times more money than you think when you get started. A lot of times startup businesses are undercapitalized, and 80% of the time that businesses fail is because they run out of money. So it's 4 out of 5 times. So I always say, when you think you need 25,000 to start your business, you probably need 50, you may need 75, who knows, depending on the nature of it. So make sure, do all the things that you can out of the gate to make sure that you're capitalized, or make sure you have access to credit to allow your business to kind of continue while you're building that. So I figured I'd give you a second one because I just couldn't let that one slide being a finance guy.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great takeaway. And I think it is one where, and I think everybody thinks they're going to be the exception to the rule of, hey, I've got my numbers nailed down. I've got it exactly. I know exactly what I need. And I think, to your point, everybody finds out, no matter how careful planning that goes, you're going to need more time and more money than you anticipate. So you take whatever you think you're going to need and double or triple it, because that's probably a better accurate estimation. So I think that's a great piece of advice and a great takeaway. Well, now as we do wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
I would say in the email is schess 84 at CFO, then with a 4 vets.com. It's probably best to email me. My website is CFO4vets.com with a 4 too. That's another good way you can reach me and send communications to me. But if you want to get right to me, an email is the best way to do it.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, make a good connection, and nothing else, a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Scott, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if you're a startup or small business and need help along your journey with us, with patents or trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Thank you again, Scott, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Well, thanks so much, Devin, for having me. Pleasure. It's a lot of fun being on, chatting with you, and I'll give a shout out for IP. Make sure you protect your business's intellectual property. It is a very good investment of money. So protect it before you have to go fight for it later. I'm sure Devin will tell you that, but I absolutely trademarked my logo and everything else. So thank you.
Awesome. We'll definitely appreciate the shout out, and thanks again for coming on the podcast, and best of luck.